Happy Veterans Day. I'm Derrick Stewart, President and CEO of the YMCA of Greater Indianapolis. Veterans Day is a time when we honor and express our gratitude to those who have served our country in times of war and peace. And as we continue our important partnerships with Veteran Health Indiana and the Rehabilitation Hospital of Indiana by providing space for blood drives, support for cancer patients, and a clinic for health services, we also want to take this opportunity to invite all veterans and their immediate family members to experience a free day at the YMCA of Greater Indianapolis location of their choice on Wednesday, November the 11th. To request your free pass, simply send an email with Free Veterans Day Pass in the subject line to jechapman@indymca.org. That address is also displayed at the bottom of your screen. And your free pass can be used any day between now and February 12th, 2021. We look forward to welcoming you and your family to the Y. It's also my pleasure to introduce to you our featured speaker today, retired General Dana Pittard. General Pittard actively served our country in the U.S. Army for 34 consecutive years, including multiple combat tours in Iraq and the Middle East. He is a West Point graduate and vice president of a local manufacturing company right here in Indiana. Please help me welcome Major General Dana Pittard.
Hello, I'm Dana Pittard, and I'm a veteran. And I'm honored to speak to you today to celebrate our veterans. I want to thank the YMCA for hosting this event. And as so many of you know, the YMCA is in our towns and cities across America and in the world. It's in 120 countries around the world and over 10,000 locations in America, and provides such a service to so many people. So I thank you again for hosting this event. Instead of giving a traditional speech, I thought I'd do something a little bit different. I canvassed colleagues and asked them to submit questions for me to answer as a part of this. So we'll start with the very first question, and my wife Lucille will give the questions.
Thank you. General Pittard, can you tell the audience a little bit about yourself, such as what made you want to join the military?
Well, I think I've always wanted to be in the military. My father was a veteran. In fact, he enlisted in the Army as a young private in 1950, went on to the rank of sergeant, became an officer by going to officer candidate school, and so was a career military. My mother was a Department of the Army civilian. In fact, we moved all over the place. I was born in Japan, and I think from early playground days, I used to play Army. I always wanted to lead a couple of my fellow friends to do different things. So I think I always wanted to be in the military. I think what really changed for me was when I wanted to go to West Point, United States Military Academy, West Point. And when I was in the fourth grade, or just the end of my fourth grade year, I saw an issue of National Geographic, July 1969 issue. Wherever I go, I've got a copy of that now, just as a reminder of that early thought and vision and ambition as a young child. Here is that July 1969 National Geographic issue. I take this magazine with me almost everywhere I go, whether it's one's in my office, a copy's at home, and I even took it on deployments just to remind me of why I wanted to be in the military. And part of that is this picture of Dwight D. Eisenhower. You'll see him in the front there, Supreme Allied Commander in Europe right before D-Day. And around that table is Air Marshal Tedder, Field Marshal Montgomery, General Bradley, and all the commanders right before D-Day. And just seeing that picture and then reading that Dwight D. Eisenhower went to West Point made me want to go to West Point. Now, those are some pretty bold ambitions for just a young child, but that was part of the impetus of why I wanted to not just be in the military, but go to West Point. So after reading this issue, I called a little meeting of my family outside our home on an Air Force base we lived in Oregon, which has since closed. And I was very, very somber and said, "Mom, Dad, I think I want to go to West Point." This is a youngster who just completed the 4th grade. Now, they didn't laugh. And at that time, only a handful of African Americans had even gone, much less graduated from West Point. So it was a bold ambition at the time. But they supported me. They said they would support me as long as I worked hard in school. And so I did. And so 8 years later, I entered the United States Military Academy at West Point and graduated in 1981 and then served 34 years in the Army. Thank you.
General Pittard, can you tell our listeners, what does Veterans Day mean to you?
I think Veterans Day for most veterans has a deep meaning. Now, the origins of Veterans Day really was the end of World War I. It was the 11th day, or the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month, November 11th, 1918, which was Armistice Day, the end of World War I. And over time, that has become a day that we take the time as a country to thank our veterans. And it's our veterans who have served over the 244 years of the Republic. For me personally, I think of a number of veterans that I've had the honor to serve with. I think of Colonel Thomas E. White, who was my regimental commander in 11th Armored Cavalry Regiment, and the difference in leadership of one person and what a difference that can make. He leveled the playing field for so many of us. It was because of him that I was able to get my first company level command. I'll never forget that. That's a veteran who I learned so much from. Veterans Day also makes me think of soldiers like Staff Sergeant David Bellavia from Buffalo, New York, who was in my unit in Iraq in 2004 and was an infantryman who fought house to house in Fallujah, Iraq, and continued to fight with overwhelming odds against him, pulling out his fellow soldiers who had been wounded, and then taking the fight to the enemy. I think of Staff Sergeant Bellavia and his courage. Staff Sergeant Bellavia, just last year, was awarded our nation's highest honor, the Medal of Honor, in the White House, in a ceremony in the White House in June of 2019. I also think of Captain Sean Sims, who was from El Paso, Texas, who was a company commander in my unit when I was a brigade commander. He commanded Alpha Company 2 Infantry. We served together in Germany, Kosovo, and in Iraq. In fact, when we deployed to Iraq, he and his wife, Heidi, who taught with my wife, Lucille, taught school, had a 5-weeks-old baby when he deployed. He led his soldiers with distinction. He was killed in action fighting in Fallujah. In fact, he was Sergeant Belavia's company commander. And in that Medal of Honor ceremony, Staff Sergeant Bellavia invited the widow of Captain Sims and his son, Colin, who is now 17 years old. It has deep meaning for all veterans who have served in so many places throughout the world and in our country. But I think of individuals like Colonel White, Staff Sergeant Bellavia, and Captain Sims, and so many others on Veterans Day. Thank you.
There are many positive character traits that veterans carry with them after leaving the military. Which one stands out the most to you?
I think there are many traits that stand out as far as our veterans, but probably the number one characteristic or character trait would be, I think, selfless service.
Well, you mentioned selfless service as a trait that veterans carry into the civilian world. How do you feel that that can enhance the YMCA's purpose or vision?
I think the whole concept of selfless service that so many veterans bring to the places that they live after their military service is closely associated to what the YMCA does and represents. The YMCA, looking at its objectives and mission of caring, of honesty, of respect and responsibility, is very, very important to the communities in which they exist. Our veterans and their families, because when you think of veterans, you have to think of families too, of spouses, of children who were been used to living sometimes on military bases. And after the veteran leaves the service, when he or she leaves the service, there is the need for that sense of belonging. And that's where I think the YMCA can be very helpful in that, in having veterans and their families connected with the YMCA. And selfless service is also something that's bigger than yourself, that you are serving a greater purpose. And it can be within your own community, it can be our nation, it can be other things, but selfless service. Thank you.
All right, General Pittard, thank you for your 30 plus years of service to our nation. Before we close, is there anything else that you'd like to share with us?
Well, there are so many things. I want to, again, thank the YMCA for hosting this event. The YMCA has meant so much to so many people. And whether it's fitness, which is natural for veterans, because veterans come from a fairly fit environment, and then you have the YMCA, which also inspires fitness. I think veterans also have a piece in, or a stake in the future of our country. Just this week, we had a very, very contentious presidential election in which our nation is split right down the middle. It's veterans who are thinking beyond partisan politics who can help unite this country. It's, again, this we the people that will have to unite this country that is so divided in so many ways. Regardless of who wins the election, we're going to have a unified effort. And veterans can be a part of that. As veterans know, they know that it's bigger than just something that is a partisan issue. So I believe that as we move forward in the future, that kind of selfless service will help our country be the greatest country in the world that it is. And I can tell you in the 34 years that I did serve our country in our military, America was absolutely worth fighting for. So once again, I want to thank our veterans. I also want to thank our police, firefighters, and first responders for their service to our country. And I want to thank the YMCA for this event. Thank you. God bless you all.